The morning had started like any other. Sunlight, a rare commodity in my usually curtained apartment, streamed through the blinds, painting stripes across the minimalist decor. I was 33, a senior software architect at a booming tech firm in downtown Seattle, a city where innovation buzzed in the air like 1,000 lines of meticulously crafted code. My life, professionally, was a carefully orchestrated symphony of precision, complex problem solving, and the quiet satisfaction of seeing intricate systems come alive under my touch. I thrived in the logic of algorithms, the clarity of clean code, the predictable cause and effect of a well-designed program. My personal life, however, was a discordant, increasingly chaotic mess, a sprawling, untamed garden of emotional entropy that I desperately tried to prune, primarily for the sake of my 8-year-old son, Leo. I was hunched over my standing desk, already deep into a new project, lines of Python scrolling across my triple monitors, when my phone vibrated, a persistent, insistent hum against the polished wood. It wasn't a number I recognized, a blurred string of digits, typically dismissed as spam or an unsolicited sales call. My work phone, a sleek corporate issue smartphone, was usually a fortress, its contacts tightly curated, its notifications limited to scheduled client calls or urgent team updates. But something, a primal tremor deep in my gut, a father's instinct sharper than any algorithm, screamed at me to answer it. It wasn't a scheduled call. It was a desperate, unscheduled chime of fate, a jarring interruption to the day's carefully constructed peace. I picked up, my heart beginning a frantic, unfamiliar drumbeat against my ribs, a premonition of disaster. "Will Carter," I answered, my voice steady, betraying none of the sudden anxiety that seized me. Years in high-pressure tech environments had taught me to project calm, even when my internal systems were screaming. "Mr. Carter, this is Nurse Daniels from Northwood Elementary." A woman's voice, tight with urgency and barely contained panic, rattled through the receiver. "Your son, Leo, he's collapsed. We've already called 911. An ambulance is on its way." "Collapsed?" I repeated, the single word feeling impossibly heavy, catching in my throat, each syllable a choke. The meticulously organized world around me, the luminous lines of code, the quiet hum of the servers, the meticulously aligned pens on my desk, blurred into an indistinct haze, a surreal, terrifying dream. Leo. My brilliant, curious, vivacious Leo. My small, fragile boy with the bright, inquisitive eyes and the boundless energy, who also carried the silent, ever-present burden of chronic asthma. My mind instantly raced back to his last major asthma attack when he was 4, the terror of his small body struggling for breath, the frantic race to the emergency room, the haunting sound of his wheezing breaths. A high fever, for any child, was dangerous. For Leo, with his compromised respiratory system, it could spiral into a nightmare, a descent into medical chaos that could steal him from me. "Yes," Nurse Daniels confirmed, her voice strained, barely above a whisper, heavy with unspoken dread. "His temperature is over 105 degrees Fahrenheit. He passed out in the classroom. He's unresponsive right now. We tried to call your wife first, Mrs. Reynolds, but..." There was a significant, agonizing pause on her end, filled only with my own ragged breathing, the frantic thumping of my heart. The silence stretched, pregnant with unspoken meaning, amplifying my terror. "But what?" I demanded, my voice rising, raw with an urgency I rarely allowed myself, a primal roar erupting from deep within me. My heart was now a frantic bird, hammering against the cage of my chest, threatening to burst free, to fly directly to my son. Every fiber of my being screamed at me that something was terribly, fundamentally wrong, far beyond a simple, innocent fever. This was more than an emergency. It felt like a betrayal. "She blocked our number," Nurse Daniels finally said, her voice quiet, almost mournful, yet laced with an undeniable undercurrent of shock and condemnation. The words hung in the air, heavy with accusation. "The call wouldn't go through. We tried twice. We were forced to call you as the emergency contact, Mr. Carter." Blocked our number. The words hit me like a physical blow, a cold, sickening wave of realization crashing over me, leaving me gasping for breath. My ex-wife, Ashley. Of course. It made a perverse, horrifying sense, given the twisted, self-serving logic that governed her world. My mind, usually so adept at solving complex problems, suddenly seized, unable to process the cruelty, the profound indifference. I didn't ask another question. I couldn't. My mind was already racing, propelled by a primal, protective rage, a burning inferno in my chest. "I'm coming," I choked out, the words barely audible, before slamming the phone down, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the stunned silence of my office. I didn't grab my laptop bag, didn't bother to log off, didn't even tell my bewildered boss, David, who was staring at me from his doorway, his face etched with concern. Nothing mattered but Leo. I ran, a frantic, desperate sprint through the silent office, past startled colleagues who watched my sudden, uncharacteristic urgency with wide eyes, down the stairs, and out into the bustling, indifferent city streets. The cold Seattle air hit my face, a shock to my system, but I barely registered it. I fumbled for my car keys, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped them. I drove like a madman. The usually disciplined traffic laws, a distant, irrelevant memory, mere suggestions in the face of this overwhelming emergency. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, a white-knuckled grip on the fragile tether connecting me to my son. My heart was a frantic engine, thoughts spinning in a terrifying vortex. What happened? Why did Ashley block the school's number? Was Leo okay? The worst-case scenarios, vivid and brutal, flashed behind my eyes. Each one a fresh stab of fear, each a deeper plunge into the abyss of paternal dread. My relationship with Ashley, Leo's mother, had been a slow, agonizing descent into chaos, a gradual unraveling of trust and affection. We'd met in college, a whirlwind romance, fueled by youthful idealism and a shared love for late-night study sessions in dimly lit cafes. She was brilliant, undeniably charismatic, effortlessly charming, the kind of woman who commanded attention without even trying. But beneath the dazzling exterior, the perfect smile, the easy laughter, lay a profound, almost pathological selfishness, a narcissistic core that prioritized her desires, her image, her convenience above all else, even horrifyingly above her own child. I had, in my youthful naivete, mistaken her self-interest for ambition, her detachment for independence, her casual disregard for boundaries as a free spirit. We married young, barely out of college, caught up in the intoxicating rush of new love and shared dreams. Leo arrived 2 years later, a beacon of pure, unadulterated joy in a marriage that was already showing faint, almost imperceptible cracks, fissures in the foundation that I, in my blind optimism, chose to ignore. Ashley, it became chillingly clear, viewed Leo less as a child to be nurtured, a soul to be guided, and more as an accessory, a charming prop in her perfectly curated life, a symbol of her domestic perfection to be displayed on social media. She was always too busy for school plays, her schedule perpetually packed with important meetings or crucial events. She was too tired for bedtime stories, her energy perpetually consumed by her burgeoning career as a social media influencer, a world of curated perfection, hollow smiles, and endless self-promotion. Over the years, her neglect became more pronounced, more insidious, like a slow-acting poison. She'd forget to pick Leo up from school, leaving him waiting, a small, solitary figure on the curb, his small face etched with confusion and a nascent understanding of abandonment. She'd prioritize brand deals and photo shoots over essential doctor's appointments, especially after Leo's asthma diagnosis, downplaying its severity with a dismissive wave of her hand. My pleas, my gentle suggestions, my desperate arguments for more involvement, for more care, for more basic responsibility, fell on deaf ears, met with dismissive waves of her perfectly manicured hand or, worse, furious accusations of me being controlling and unsupportive of her dreams. She even once accused me of trying to sabotage her career by asking her to take Leo to an emergency allergy appointment. Our divorce, 2 years ago, had been brutal, messy, leaving deep, festering scars. I had fought tooth and nail for full custody, citing her neglect, her emotional detachment, but the courts, swayed by her charming facade, her carefully constructed image of a doting mother, and her highly paid legal team had granted us joint custody, a decision that had haunted my waking hours ever since. Leo spent weekdays with me, weekends with her, and it was during those weekends that my anxiety soared, a constant gnawing unease that lived in the pit of my stomach. I installed tracking apps on his phone. He had a simple, sturdy one for emergencies, programmed only with essential numbers, called the school repeatedly, constantly worried, always on edge, always anticipating the next crisis that would inevitably arise from her carelessness. But I never imagined she would actively endanger him, deliberately, maliciously, by blocking the very lifeline designed to protect him. Pulling up to Northwood Elementary, I found 2 police cruisers and an ambulance, their lights flashing a silent, urgent warning, painting the gray school building with an eerie, pulsing glow. I leapt out of my car, abandoning it in the middle of the street, ignoring the blaring horns of frustrated drivers, and sprinted towards the commotion, my legs burning with exertion, my lungs screaming for air. Nurse Daniels met me at the entrance, her face grim, her usually composed demeanor replaced by a haunted, worried expression. "He's stable, mister." "Carter," she said, her voice softer now, but still strained, a tremor in her words. "They're just loading him into the ambulance. He had a seizure from the fever." It was very frightening. His little body just convulsed. We had to physically restrain him to make sure he didn't hurt himself. A seizure. The words tore through me, a fresh wave of terror, raw and visceral. My vision swam, the world tilting precariously on its axis. My brilliant, sensitive Leo experiencing a seizure. The thought was unbearable. "Where is he?" She pointed to the ambulance, her hand trembling slightly. "He's unconscious now, but his breathing is regular. His vitals are stable. They're taking him to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. I've already called them, Mr. Carter, given them his full medical history, his asthma, his allergies, everything. They're expecting him." I raced to the ambulance, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs, each beat a prayer. I peered inside. Leo lay small and terribly pale on the stretcher, an oxygen mask covering his tiny face, his chest rising and falling slowly, fragilely. A paramedic, his face etched with quiet concern, looked up at me. "Are you the father? We've got him stabilized. We're heading out now." "He's very lucky you answered the phone, Mr. Carter." "I'm going with him," I said, my voice unwavering, my resolve hardening into unbreakable steel. I climbed into the back of the ambulance, gripping Leo's tiny, limp hand, my thumb tracing slow, reassuring circles on his clammy skin. I didn't care about anything else. Ashley, her phone, her lies, her manufactured outrage, all of it would wait. My son, my Leo, that was all that mattered now. He was my world, my North Star, the very reason I breathed. The ride to St. Jude's was a blur of flashing lights, the incessant wailing cry of the siren, and the constant, rhythmic beep of medical monitors, each beep a fragile heartbeat. I knelt beside Leo, murmuring reassurances to his unconscious form, my voice a ragged whisper, promising him I was there, promising him I would fix everything, promising him I would never let anything like this happen again. At the hospital, the emergency room was a whirlwind of controlled chaos, a high-stakes ballet of critical care. Doctors, nurses, specialists, they moved with practiced efficiency, a symphony of urgent whispers and hushed commands. They ran tests, administered powerful medication through IVs, explained everything to me in rapid, urgent tones, their words a dizzying cascade of medical jargon that I struggled to process. Leo was diagnosed with severe influenza, complicated by a rapidly progressing bacterial infection that had escalated due to what the doctors termed delayed treatment. The fever had spiked dangerously, leading to the terrifying febrile seizure. They confirmed he was lucky. If the school hadn't called 911 immediately, if I hadn't picked up, if Nurse Daniels hadn't acted with such swift, decisive professionalism, the thought of what could have happened was too horrifying to complete, a gaping mauve darkness I dare not look into. As Leo was finally moved from the chaotic emergency room to a private room in the pediatric ICU, his small body hooked up to an array of IVs and monitors that hummed and blinked ominously, the immediate crisis began to recede, replaced by a cold, simmering rage that burned deep within me, an inferno of paternal fury. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped it. I had tried to call Ashley countless times on the way to the hospital, her number going straight to voicemail each time, ringing out unanswered, a chilling silence. Now, I tried again. Still, nothing. The nurse at the school had said Ashley blocked their number. That wasn't just neglect. That was calculated, malicious endangerment. That was a deliberate act of putting our child at risk. I called my lawyer, Sarah Chen, a formidable attorney known for her razor-sharp intellect, her fierce advocacy in child custody cases, and her unwavering moral compass. Her voice, usually calm and measured, was sharp and clear, cutting through my emotional turmoil like a laser. "Will, what happened? What's going on? Are you at the hospital? Is Leo okay?" I recounted the horrifying events, my voice shaking with a mixture of emotional exhaustion and incandescent fury, the details of Nurse Daniel's shocking revelation about the blocked number, Leo's terrifying seizure, his rapid deterioration, the doctor's grim prognosis about delayed treatment. "Sarah, I want emergency sole custody, effective immediately. I want Ashley investigated. I want her nowhere near Leo until she can prove she's not a danger to him. This isn't just neglect, Sarah. This is an attempt on his life. She put him in mortal danger." Sarah's response was immediate and firm, her voice hardening with resolve. "Will, I'm filing the emergency motion right now. This is a clear case of parental endangerment, a textbook example. Get me a full detailed report from the school, from Nurse Daniels. Get me every single medical record from St. Jude's, every doctor's note, every nurse's log, every test result. Document everything, every missed call, every text message you've sent her that went unanswered, every single interaction. Do not contact Ashley. Do not confront her. Do not engage. Let me handle it. I'm coming to the hospital now. I'll be there in 20 minutes. While Sarah was en route, meticulously preparing the legal groundwork, I finally received a text message from Ashley, almost 5 agonizing hours after Leo's collapse. Her words, so casual, so filled with a manufactured innocence, ignited a fresh wave of disgust that threatened to overwhelm me. "OMG, Will, is Leo okay?" I just saw a bunch of missed calls from the school and thought it was spam. You know how many spam calls I get? I was at my photo shoot all day, couldn't check my phone. "Why didn't you call me earlier?" The sheer audacity of the lie, the thinly veiled attempt to shift the blame, was breathtaking in its shamelessness. She didn't ask about Leo's condition, his recovery, his pain, his fear, only why I hadn't called her earlier, trying, even in this moment of crisis, to manipulate the narrative. I took a deep breath, fighting the visceral urge to respond, to unleash the torrent of fury building inside me, remembering Sarah's strict instructions. Document everything. Preserve the evidence. I took a screenshot of her text, noting the exact time it was sent, adding it to the growing dossier of her profound negligence. This was not just a text. This was a weapon in the fight for my son. Sarah arrived shortly, her expression grim but determined. A warrior entering the battlefield. She was dressed in a sharp business suit, radiating competence and quiet authority. We sat in the small, sterile hospital waiting room, the fluorescent lights casting a harsh, unforgiving glow, while Leo slept fitfully in the ICU, his breathing still shallow, his small chest rising and falling with a fragility that twisted my heart. I provided Sarah with every single detail, every agonizing memory of Ashley's past neglect. The time she forgot to give Leo his asthma inhaler before a crucial field trip, resulting in a terrifying, near-fatal attack that landed him in the emergency room. The repeated emergencies that pulled her away from weekend custody, leaving Leo with an endless parade of unfamiliar babysitters. The countless times I'd covered her responsibilities, making excuses for her to Leo, to the teachers, to myself. "This is more than just neglect, Will," Sarah stated, her voice low and serious, her eyes fixed on mine. "This is a dangerous, escalating pattern of behavior. And blocking the school's number, especially with Leo's known severe medical condition, that's not just negligent, it's reckless endangerment. It's a deliberate act of putting a child at risk. We have an incredibly strong case for immediate protective custody. The judge will see this for what it is." Sarah worked tirelessly, her phone perpetually glued to her ear, filing the emergency motion that very evening. The judge, presented with Nurse Daniels' detailed sworn statement, recounting the multiple desperate attempts to reach Ashley and her clear message about the blocked number, along with the chilling 911 call logs, timed to perfection, and Leo's critical, life-threatening medical records from St. Jude's, did not hesitate. Within hours, she granted a temporary ex parte order, stripping Ashley of all custody and visitation rights, pending an emergency hearing within 72 hours. A police officer, dispatched by the court, delivered the order to Ashley's luxury apartment while she was in the middle of filming a sponsored content video, her perfect smile momentarily frozen in a rictus of shock. The next morning, the storm broke, a tempest of Ashley's fury. My phone, which I had previously kept on silent, began to buzz incessantly, vibrating with her enraged calls and furious, accusatory text messages. "Will, what the hell is this? Are you kidding me? You can't just do this. You're ruining my life. I'm calling my lawyers. You'll regret this. This is all about your control issues. You're manipulating the system." I didn't respond. Not a single word. I focused solely on Leo, on his slow, arduous recovery, his fragile breaths. He began to stir later that day, his eyes fluttering open, confused and weak, his small hand instinctively reaching for mine. "Dad?" he whispered, his voice raspy from the oxygen mask, still fragile. "I'm here, buddy," I murmured, leaning close, tears stinging my eyes, blurring his pale face. "I'm right here. You're at the hospital. You had a bad fever, but you're going to be okay. The doctors are taking good care of you." He looked at me, a flicker of fear in his eyes, a small, hopeful question on his lips. "Mommy?" The question cut through me, a sharp pang of pain. Even after everything, even after her profound neglect, he still looked for her, still longed for her presence. Mommy isn't here right now, Leo, but I am, and I'm not leaving, not for a second. I explained it as gently as I could, shielding him from the ugly, adult truth of Ashley's actions, of her betrayal. I promised him I would always be there, a steadfast, unmoving presence in his life. The emergency hearing was a crucible, a brutal, emotionally draining showdown. Ashley arrived with her high-powered legal team, radiating indignant fury, her face a mask of manufactured outrage. She looked impeccably put together, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, embodying the image of the wronged, heartbroken mother. Her lawyers, slick and aggressive, argued that I was a vindictive ex-husband, using Leo's illness as an opportunistic excuse to gain full custody, that the blocked number was merely a misunderstanding, a technical glitch with her phone, a momentary lapse in an otherwise stellar parental record. They painted me as overprotective, overly dramatic, emotionally unstable. They even tried to suggest that my high-stress job made me an unfit primary caregiver, a cruel twist of the knife. But Sarah Chin was more than prepared. She systematically dismantled Ashley's defense, piece by devastating piece. She presented Nurse Daniels' detailed, unwavering sworn affidavit, recounting the multiple attempts to reach Ashley, the clear message about the blocked number, and her deep, professional concern for Leo's escalating, life-threatening condition. She presented the cold, unfeeling 911 call logs, timed to perfection, showing the gap between the school's initial calls to Ashley and their frantic call to me. She presented the hospital's voluminous medical report, meticulously detailing the severity of Leo's influenza and bacterial infection, the terrifying febrile seizure, and the direct, undeniable link between delayed treatment and his critical state, confirmed by multiple expert medical witnesses. And then, the final, crushing blow. Sarah played the recording of Ashley's frantic, self-serving voicemail to me, asking why I hadn't called her sooner, why I had ruined her day, instead of expressing a single word of concern about her critically ill son. The contrast between her manufactured outrage and her profound indifference was stark, damning, a chilling testament to her true priorities. Ashley, for all her practiced charm, for all her carefully cultivated image, faltered under the relentless, surgical precision of Sarah's cross-examination. Her composure cracked, Her voice stammered. She contradicted herself repeatedly, her polished facade crumbling before the unflinching gaze of the court, revealing the hollow, selfish core beneath. The judge, a stern but compassionate woman with decades of experience in family law, listened intently, her expression increasingly grave, her eyes narrowing with a quiet, undeniable disgust. "Miss Reynolds," the judge finally stated, her voice cutting through the tension of the courtroom like a sharp blade, her words slow, deliberate, and utterly devastating. "The overwhelming evidence presented here paints a profoundly disturbing picture. Your son, a child with a known serious medical condition, suffered a severe medical emergency. The school, in their desperate efforts to alert a parent, found their emergency calls repeatedly, deliberately, blocked from your number. While your son was battling for his life, while he was convulsing from a dangerously high fever, your primary concern, according to your own recorded message, appears to have been your own inconvenience, your own disrupted social schedule. This court cannot and will not tolerate such blatant disregard for a child's safety, such profound parental neglect, bordering on outright endangerment. The temporary protective order granting Mr. Carter's sole physical and legal custody is hereby made permanent. All future contact with your son will be supervised and contingent upon satisfactory completion of a comprehensive psychological evaluation and mandatory parental counseling, the cost of which will be borne solely by you." A collective, stunned gasp went through the courtroom, a ripple of shock. Ashley's face went white, then mottled red with fury, her jaw dropping in disbelief, her eyes wide with a dawning comprehension of the magnitude of her loss. She looked at me, her eyes burning with pure incandescent hatred, a primal fury. But I met her gaze calmly, my expression unwavering. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. It was about protecting my son. It was about giving Leo the safety and stability he deserved, that every child deserved. The legal battle continued for months, a grueling, emotionally draining process that drained my bank account and tested my resolve to its absolute limits. Ashley appealed. She filed frivolous motions. She dragged us through every possible avenue, every legal loophole, desperate to regain some semblance of control or, failing that, to make my life as miserable as humanly possible. Her social media followers, initially sympathetic to her unjust situation, began to turn when the local news, picking up on the sensational story, aired reports detailing the judge's damning findings, citing public court records. Her carefully cultivated online persona, built on a foundation of manufactured perfection, began to crack under the weight of public scrutiny. Her brand deals dried up. Her perfect online world, her entire identity, began to unravel, exposing the hollow core beneath. Through it all, I focused relentlessly on Leo. He was discharged from the hospital after a week and pale, but slowly, miraculously recovering. I took an extended leave of absence from work, setting up a temporary home office in his room, rarely leaving his side, my eyes always on him, my ears always listening for the slightest change in his breathing. I cooked his favorite meals, patiently read him countless stories, helped him with his schoolwork, and just held him, letting my constant, reassuring presence be an unshakable anchor in his young, turbulent life. We reestablished a new routine, a rhythm of safety, stability, and normalcy. I enrolled him in therapy to help him process the trauma of his collapse, the fear, and the profound emotional void left by his mother's abandonment. He started to laugh again, truly laugh, his infectious giggle filling our home with a joyful sound I hadn't realized I had missed so desperately. He started talking more, sharing his fears, his dreams, his small victories, his innocent questions about why mommy wasn't coming home. One quiet evening, as I tucked him into bed, his small hand nestled in mine, Leo looked up at me, his eyes wide and earnest, filled with a depth of understanding that belied his young age. "Dad," he whispered, his voice soft, "I'm glad you're my dad, the best dad." My heart swelled, a warmth spreading through my chest that eclipsed any pain, any anger, any exhaustion. "I'm glad I'm your dad too, buddy," I murmured, my voice thick with emotion, kissing his forehead. "More than anything, you're my everything." His recovery was a testament to his incredible resilience, his innate strength. He rediscovered his love for drawing, filling sketchbooks with vibrant superheroes and fantastical creatures, his imagination soaring free. He rejoined his soccer team, his small legs pumping with renewed energy, his laughter echoing across the field. He made new friends, his confidence blossoming like a spring flower, no longer burdened by the quiet anxiety he used to carry. He was thriving, truly thriving, in a way I hadn't seen him do in years, perhaps ever. The final court ruling came down a year after Leo's collapse, a definitive end to the nightmare. Ashley's remaining appeals were rejected, summarily dismissed by the higher courts. The judge reaffirmed the permanent sole custody to me, citing a continued pattern of emotional neglect, her profound lack of genuine engagement with Leo's therapeutic progress, and her consistent failure to prioritize his well-being, even after the emergency. She was granted only minimal, highly supervised visitation, contingent on her consistent participation in therapy and regular psychological evaluations, a measure I knew deep down she would never genuinely commit to, her self-absorption too deeply ingrained. It was truly over. The battle was won, not with a roar of triumph, but with a quiet, profound sigh of relief. Sitting with Leo in our favorite park, watching him chase pigeons with a joyful, unburdened abandon, his laughter carrying on the gentle breeze, I reflected on the tumultuous, transformative year. I had almost lost him, not to illness alone, but to the cold indifference of someone who should have protected him above all else, who should have been his staunchest advocate. But that horrific incident, that terrifying day, had forced me to confront the uncomfortable truths I had long avoided, the red flags I had willfully ignored, the compromises I had made. I had been complacent, believing that my love and diligence alone could somehow compensate for Ashley's profound failings. I had been too afraid of the conflict, too willing to make excuses, to hope for change where there was none. Leo's collapse was a brutal, terrifying wake-up call, a splash of ice-cold water that shocked me into action. It stripped away all illusions, revealing the stark, undeniable reality of the danger he was in, the precariousness of his existence under joint custody. My life now, though no longer neatly controlled and predictable like my lines of code, was authentic. It was messy, unpredictable, filled with the beautiful chaos of single parenthood, of scraped knees and bedtime stories, of late-night anxieties and triumphant morning giggles. But it was honest. I no longer sought to please or appease anyone. My purpose was clear, unshakable: to protect Leo, to nurture him, to show him what unconditional love truly looked like, not just with words, but with unwavering action. My work, once my primary focus, now served a larger, more profound purpose: to provide security for my son, to build a future for us where he never had to doubt he was loved, valued, and unequivocally safe. Ashley's world, once so shiny and perfect, had utterly crumbled. The relentless news stories, the public scrutiny, the irreversible loss of her lucrative brand deals, the crushing weight of her legal fees, it had all taken its toll, stripping away her carefully constructed illusion. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she had moved out of her luxury apartment, her social media presence dramatically reduced, the carefully constructed facade finally shattered beyond repair. I felt no triumph in her downfall, no surge of victorious vindication, only a quiet sadness for the wasted potential, the profound emptiness that had led her to such heartless actions, such a profound failure of motherhood. The message I carry with me, etched into my soul, and the one I hope to instill in Leo through every action, every word, every loving embrace, is simple yet profoundly powerful. Love isn't a fleeting emotion you express when it's convenient. It's an action, a constant, unwavering presence. Love protects, it shows up, it listens, it sacrifices, it understands, it forgives, and sometimes it means making the hardest, most painful, most gut-wrenching choices for the undeniable well-being of those you cherish, even when it means tearing your world apart to rebuild it better. True family supports your growth, nurtures your spirit, helps you become more fully yourself, rather than demanding you diminish yourself, compromise your values, or sacrifice your well-being to serve their selfish needs. And sometimes, the most profound act of self-love and of ultimate protection for those who depend on you is simply walking away from those who cannot see your worth beyond what you can give them, those who seek to exploit your love, and building a new, healthy, thriving life, brick by painstaking brick, for yourself and for those you truly love, a life built on a foundation of genuine connection and unwavering respect. I didn't win a trophy for what I did, no standing ovation from a cheering crowd, no glittering medal to hang on my wall, just this, a peaceful house filled with laughter and sunlight, a safe child, his eyes bright with joy, a quiet, full heart that beats with purpose. I protected him, and I'd do it again 1,000 times over, 1,000,000 times over, because he's not just my son, he's my reason for being, my greatest accomplishment, my enduring legacy. As I finish this long, arduous chapter of our story, I hear Leo laughing from his room, his voice clear and bright, telling a joke to his favorite stuffed turtle, his imaginary friend. He's not pretending anymore, not putting on a brave face. He's living, he's growing, he's free. And that, I realize, is the most profound victory of all, a triumph far greater than any legal battle or any corporate success.